Okay, let's dive in. If I told you there was this educational philosophy that basically shaped U.S. foreign policy and the civil rights movement, you'd probably think it came from somewhere in Europe, right?
Yeah, some radical think tank. But the truth is, this whole transformative power, it comes directly from American soil, specifically from institutions that were built to fight exclusion.
And that's where we're starting this deep dive. We're looking at a really surprising connection between, academic philosophy, this idea of critical pedagogy, and how global leaders are made.
We have a great stack of sources today, an academic study, some deep historical profiles, and even some very current political coverage.
Our mission here is to really get to the heart of the role that historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, play, a role that I think is seriously overlooked. We want to see how they create these leaders and drive social justice.
Right. And the key insight really is that HBCUs were never just about getting a degree. From the very beginning, they were designed to be centers for change.
Because they had to be.
Mhm.
They were founded to give black Americans access to higher education when they were facing just relentless systemic racism.
Exactly. So confronting inequity is baked into their DNA.
The numbers alone tell you a huge part of the story. I mean, get this. HBCUs make up only 3% of the nation's colleges. Just 3%.
Hmm.
But they award 28% of all bachelor's degrees earned by black students.
Yeah.
That's a massive impact.
And it's not just about the degrees, it's about the leadership pipeline. Historically, we're talking about 75% of all black PhDs,
Wow.
65% of black doctors, 50% of black engineers, and nearly half of all black executives. They are literally the engine of black leadership in, well, every field you can think of.
So we have this engine. Let's talk about the fuel, this idea of critical pedagogy. It comes from thinkers like Paulo Freire, who basically said, education is never a neutral act.
That is the absolute crux of it. It's either a tool to get people to conform to the system, or it becomes what he called the practice of freedom.
And the academic study we have really digs into that. The goal isn't just to teach facts. It's to build what they call critical consciousness.
Right. It's about empowering students to actually engage with and challenge the dominant stories, the hegemonic narratives that powerful people tell.
But what does that look like in a real classroom? We're all used to the professor at the front of the room talking, and we just, take notes.
Critical pedagogy just flips that on its head. It rejects that old authoritarian system. Freire had a great name for it. He called it the banking model of education.
A banking model.
Yeah, the idea that the teacher just deposits knowledge into a passive student. This is the opposite. It's called problem-posing education. Students and teachers, they enter into a dialogue, they analyze real-world problems.
Like systemic racism or global health issues?
Exactly. And then they work together on how to solve them.
So it's about turning theory into an actual toolkit for action. And that brings us to that term you mentioned, praxis.
Yes, praxis. It's the key ingredient. It's basically reflective action that leads to real transformative change. It means the classroom isn't some ivory tower separate from the world.
It's a site of struggle.
It is. It's a place where you prepare not just to critique the status quo, but to actually figure out a strategy to change it. It's the skill of turning a sociology lecture into, say, an effective protest.
Or a new diplomatic policy, which makes total sense when you look at the academic study. It argues that we've underestimated how much HBCUs shape international relations because their graduates don't just take the job. They take the job to change the game.
And the case studies are so clear on this. Let's take Ambassador Edward Dudley. He graduated from Johnson C. Smith University in '32. By 1949, he becomes the first African-American ambassador serving in Liberia.
Which is a huge deal on its own, but it's what he did with the job that matters.
That's it. His critical consciousness just kicked right in. He used his position to fight the racism inside the State Department itself. Specifically, this unofficial policy called the Negro Circuit.
The Negro Circuit, what was that?
It was this unwritten rule that black foreign service officers could only be assigned to posts in Africa. Dudley saw that for what it was, a way to limit their power and influence. So he fought it head on.
So he didn't just break a barrier for himself. He tried to tear down the whole system that built the barrier. That is a completely different mindset.
It's the HBCU mission in action. Or look at Ambassador Patricia Roberts Harris, a Howard alum. She broke so many barriers. First African-American woman to be an ambassador back in 1965.
And her career just kept going. It's like a case study in leadership mobility.
It is. After her diplomatic work, she becomes the first African-American woman to be dean of a U.S. law school at Howard, no less. Then she holds 2 different cabinet posts under President Carter. Her whole career was about navigating and changing power structures.
And it's not just diplomacy. The same mindset applies to science and health. We have Dr. David Satcher, a Morehouse graduate.
Dr. Satcher has this incredible distinction. He's the only person in American history to be both the U.S. Surgeon General and the Assistant Secretary for Health at the same time. And his entire focus was on reducing health inequities.
It's a clear line from the classroom philosophy to real-world policy.
And here's the thing. This is not just history. HBCUs are doing this right now. They're building these ideas into their global programs for the next generation.
Right, they're using things like the Fulbright program very strategically.
They are. Like, Houston Tillotson hosted a Fulbright scholar from India to help build its STEM MBA. It wasn't just about business, it was about the ethical role of technology in fixing global inequalities.
And Xavier University hosted a scholar from Jamaica to focus specifically on colonialism and the African diaspora. These are not light topics.
Not at all. And Spelman College is a really visible example right now. They were named a Fulbright HBCU institutional leader for 2024. They have this program, Spell Reads, where students tutor underserved kids.
That sounds like praxis in its purest form.
It's the perfect feedback loop. You study structural poverty in class, then you go out and actively work to fix the educational gaps it causes.
And this is now scaling up to actual diplomacy. Howard University has this new initiative, HUCO Avanza, with Colombian institutions.
And that's specifically focused on helping Afro-Colombian communities who make up almost 10% of Colombia's population and are often marginalized. It's grassroots diplomacy.
Meanwhile, you have Cheney University partnering with a university in Ghana on, of all things, aquaculture and aquaponics.
Right, which sounds technical, but it's really about food security. A massive global problem. It's their first partnership with an African university, and it's aimed at solving a fundamental human need.
These partnerships are creating a whole new kind of policymaker, someone whose perspective is informed by experiences way outside the dominant narrative.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's pivot back to activism here in the U.S., because the principles are exactly the same. We need to talk about Fisk University in Nashville.
Fisk is a fascinating example. Founded in 1866, it shows how academic excellence and social action were always intertwined. We forget how much these schools struggled financially right after the Civil War.
They had to get creative to even survive, right?
Totally. The Fisk Jubilee Singers started touring the world in 1871. They were singing spirituals, songs that had been confined to slave quarters. They became these global cultural ambassadors.
And they raised a lot of money.
A ton. Nearly $50,000, which was a fortune back then. It funded Jubilee Hall, which is still standing. It's the oldest permanent building for African-American higher education in the country.
That's incredible. And they were hitting major academic milestones, too.
Oh, yeah. First HBCU to be accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. First to get a Phi Beta Kappa charter. And they have these amazing cultural treasures, like a huge modern art collection with works by O'Keeffe and Picasso, and these powerful murals by Aaron Douglas.
So you have this institution that is just steeped in excellence. And that really sets the stage for one of the biggest moments of the civil rights movement, the Nashville sit-ins in 1960.
This is where you see praxis come to life. Students from Fisk and other local colleges decided to desegregate the downtown lunch counters. And the key thing to know is that this was not some spontaneous protest.
You were preparing, it was strategic.
Meticulously trained. A man named James Lawson taught them nonviolent civil disobedience, how to stay calm, how to absorb abuse, how to apply moral pressure. And the key leaders who came out of that, like John Lewis and Diane Nash, were students who were forged in this environment.
So let's talk about that turning point. The protests are going on for months, students are getting arrested, and then the home of Z. Alexander Luby, the student's lawyer, gets bombed.
That violence was meant to scare them, to break the movement. But it did the exact opposite. It sparked this massive silent march of 3,000 or 4,000 people straight to City Hall.
A nonviolent response to lethal violence.
Immediately. And that march ends with one of the most famous confrontations of the entire era, with Diane Nash.
Walk us through that moment, because it really shows critical thinking under immense pressure.
So Nash, using all her training, leads the marchers right up the steps of City Hall. She looks Mayor Ben West right in the eye and asks him a simple question. She says, "Mayor West, do you feel it is wrong to deny a person service at a lunch counter solely because of his race?"
That is a classic problem-posing question.
It is. She didn't ask about the law. She asked him about morality in public with thousands of people watching. And under all that pressure, the mayor had to answer honestly. He said, yes, it was wrong. And he agreed the lunch counters should be desegregated.
And that one public admission, forced by the strategy of these HBCU students, changed everything. Nashville became the first major southern city to start desegregating.
And that legacy is still playing out right now on the biggest political stage. You have Kamala Harris, a Howard alum, as the first HBCU grad to lead a major party's ticket.
That spotlight has to have a huge effect.
It does. Our sources say it's created a massive boost in visibility and philanthropic interest for all HBCUs. It creates this sense of pride and motivation and helps fight back against all those old biases about the quality of education.
And there's been real money behind it, too. The current administration has put in, I think, about $16 billion in investments.
And we saw that Fisk legacy come up very directly just recently with the Tennessee 3.
Right. This was in April 2023 after that horrible school shooting. Vice President Harris went to Fisk's chapel to support the 3 lawmakers.
Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson. And this was right after 2 of them, including Justin Jones, who's a Fisk alum, were expelled from the State House for protesting for gun control.
It's a direct echo of those earlier civil rights fights.
Harris made the connection herself. She explicitly linked their courage to John Lewis and Diane Nash. It just reinforces that these campuses are still central hubs for political action.
Which brings us to the big policy debate happening now about college affordability. The Biden-Harris platform is pushing for free community college and free 4-year college for families earning under $125,000.
It's a really complex debate. Everyone agrees on the goals, access, equity. But the methods are where it gets political, especially when you talk about cost.
There are other countries we can look at for examples, right? We have some information here on New Zealand's fees-free program. What happened there?
Well, New Zealand wanted to boost enrollment, especially for low-income and indigenous students, by making the first year of tuition free. The problem was it didn't really boost enrollment much at all.
So who did it help?
It disproportionately benefited students from wealthier families who were probably going to go to university anyway.
So the money was spent universally, but the benefit wasn't equitable.
Exactly. And in the end, the government shifted its focus to more targeted vocational training. The implication is that these big, untargeted programs might not be the most efficient way to spend public money, even if the idea sounds good.
So the counter-argument is that a targeted approach, like the one aimed at families under a certain income, could be a smarter way to get to that same goal of equity.
And this all circles right back to the HBCU story. You could argue that targeted investment in institutions that are already proven to produce leaders from marginalized communities is maybe the most effective path you could take.
So we've pieced together this powerful story. We have HBCUs fueled by this philosophy of critical pedagogy and praxis, producing leaders who challenge the system. We saw it with Ambassador Dudley fighting the Negro circuit. We saw it with Diane Nash at the Nashville lunch counters.
They're these essential engines for change because they teach students not just what to think, but how to apply that thinking to actually transform the world.
Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you to take with you. Given this clear, historical link between an HBCU education and leadership that is committed to disrupting the status quo, and with all the current debates over how to fund higher education, what are the next big global or domestic challenges that the current generation of HBCU students are best equipped to solve? And how can policy, whether it's targeted or universal, help amplify their power for transformative praxis?